Is Minnesota Vikings rookie quarterback JJ McCarthy further from starting for the Minnesota Vikings than we initially thought? This take is presented by Hoagland Farm. Contact Hoagland Farm at 952-491-1541 and get the best rotationally grazed 100% grass-fed Hereford beef in your freezers today. This beef is sold in quarters and halves, and he has custom sample packs so you can try before you buy. Contact Hoagland Farms and get 20% off your first order by mentioning the Minnesota Tim podcast. That's 952-491-1541 and get 20% off. Again, 952-491-1541. Okay, so JJ McCarthy and his reign so far on the Minnesota Vikings, and not necessarily his reign, because I said that because I couldn't really think of a word in that moment. But his progress, I think that's more of an accurate word. His progress on the Minnesota Vikings. Someone that I really enjoy listening to break down football, weighed in on the development and the footwork of JJ McCarthy. So let's just take a quick listen to him and hear his thoughts on JJ McCarthy's mechanics, his technique, his throwing, and, kind of all of the above.
I would be very, very surprised if Darnold's not the starter. I think they know that McCarthy's not ready, and I think everybody I talk to know McCarthy's not ready. I think their team's good enough too, Ross. You tell me your thoughts. I don't believe they're going to be one of those teams that starts out 1-6 and everybody's clamoring for the rookie. I think they're a good enough team that they're not going to be in that situation. And I'd be very, very surprised if Darnold was not the starting quarterback.
I think what Greg Cosell is saying in this is that JJ McCarthy is way further away from starting for the Minnesota Vikings than anybody thought that he would be. When I listen to his comments, I hear his technique, his fundamentals. There's a lot to work on. And I don't know about you guys, but that surprises me because coming out of Michigan, or maybe it doesn't surprise me, because coming out of Michigan, sure, he had Jim Harbaugh. Sure, he had an offensive system. He had great players around him. But that's exactly it. He had great players around him. So he was not forced to be a guy that throws the ball 30 to 40 times a game. He was not a guy that the Michigan Wolverines relied on to win a national championship because their roster was stacked. And that's been my number one concern ever since the Minnesota Vikings were considering or targeting JJ McCarthy in the NFL draft. Does he have enough arm talent to carry over to the NFL when he wasn't asked to do anything at the University of Michigan? So what I heard from Greg Cosell is that JJ McCarthy is not ready to be a starter for the Minnesota Vikings. And this is a guy that's been watching tape for over 40 years, so I trust what he has to say. This is a guy that has experience watching the best quarterbacks in the NFL for a long, long time. This is what he studies. And he says he's a guy that actually has a strong arm, but doesn't play as if he has a strong arm because there's so many issues that have to be cleared up. So my first thought was JJ McCarthy is not going to start till midseason or after midseason because the bye week is not friendly for JJ McCarthy. The Minnesota Vikings have a bye week in week 5, I think. And sometimes it's nice when you have a bye week in the middle of the season so you can get them ready for that next start. And of course, all of this is going to depend on Sam Darnold and the way he plays, because I don't think this is a situation where a couple of years ago, I guess way more than a couple of years ago, the San Francisco 49ers, Alex Smith was performing tremendously, got injured. Colin Kaepernick steps in. Alex Smith is healthy again, but Colin Kaepernick never relinquished that position. I don't think this is a situation where, if Sam Darnold is playing okay or even good, they're not going to sub in JJ McCarthy because they think he's ready. I think this is at least a wait until year 2 situation. I was hopeful that we would see him by the final fourth of the season, but in all likelihood, JJ McCarthy is not going to see the field this season for the Minnesota Vikings.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
1 out of a million is my thought.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think there's a chance. I don't think JJ McCarthy is going to start this season for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm backing off he's going to start for the final fourth of the season take, and JJ McCarthy is going to be riding the bench for the full season, which there's nothing wrong with that. He's only 21 years old, so I'm not over here just completely hammering the guy for not being ready, but I will say this. He is more raw than we anticipated coming out of the University of Michigan. I think that's facts. I think we were hopeful as a fan base, and I think a lot of national media guys were hopeful too, or at least thought that JJ McCarthy would step in, and he's got that winning DNA, he says, and he's got the good experience under Jim Harbaugh, and he's always coming in from an NFL system right into another NFL system. I think there's a lot of people that were thinking he would start day 1. But the more you look at it, the more you analyze it, this guy's not starting until he's year 2. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, Patrick Mahomes rode the bench his entire first year. Alex Smith was the starter. Okay, big deal. So it's really going to be that year 2 transition for JJ McCarthy because he's further away from the show, further away from big time than we initially hoped for and than we initially thought. And again, nothing wrong with that. All right, everyone, thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button right there. Remember to contact Hoagland Farms at 952-491-1541 for the best rotationally grazed 100% grass-fed beef and get 20% off by mentioning Minnesota Tim. Thank you for making this podcast and this episode a part of your day.